We could do this 100 years, Jill. We'd never get used to it.
It's a rough one, man. We need a new intro. I need a new theme song. Anyway, welcome to Ask the Experts. We're here at MoneyWatch.com. Love to hear from you if you got a question. This is a special, sort of in honor of Father's Day version of Ask the Experts. So anything about family finances, we have the expert, the gurus of all guruses, Stacey Bradford. There's the sound effect. The sound effect's not working, Marianne. Sorry. And Stacey, by the way, can we just do this, Roland? Can you put my the screen up here so I can plug Stacey's book? Oh, sweet. Okay, let me just tell you that Stacey Bradford covers personal finance with a focus on issues that affect families. Her first book, The Wall Street Journal Financial Guidebook for New Parents, hit the shelves last year. She was previously an associate editor at smartmoney.com for more than 10 years. Did you guys know each other there?
We did indeed, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
This is Jack Otter, by the way. Jack's preparation for this show, this is what we told him. He was like, I didn't prepare for the show. So Megan says to him, are you a father?
Check.
Are you a husband?
Check.
Do you talk about money in your family?
Oh, occasionally.
There
yeah.
you go. Okay, Stacey's going to do all the work anyway. So, Stacey, we've been wanting to have you on this show for so long, but I had to wait while you were on maternity leave. How inconvenient for me. How was that?
The baby's great. She's actually already 8 months old, and she's still not sleeping through the night, and it's just killing me.
Oh, my God. Hey, Stacey, what's her name?
Her name is Agatha.
You didn't name her Jill?
No,
That's very weird.
maybe
I'm
the middle
surprised.
name.
I need that surprise. Agatha after Christy or some family name?
We just like the name.
Oh, that's cool. You're the coolest. Okay. So Stacey blogs for us. She writes a blog that's called, oddly enough, Family Finance. Amazing. We're so smart like that. And you have a blog post here that kind of got us going for the show, Finances for Stay-at-Home Moms. Since I don't stay at home and I'm not a mom, I'm going to ask all the questions that I'm channeling through all of my friends and siblings who are stay-at-home moms. Ready?
Ready.
Okay. So let me ask you something about this. What is the hardest part about staying home when it comes to the money question? In other words, if someone's considering being a stay-at-home mom, what are the things that she has to do, or a stay-at-home dad, by the way, what are the things he or she has to do to really decide whether the family can afford to do this?
Well, financially, you just have to do a budget, and you have to figure out, can we actually afford this? Because for some families, it actually makes more sense to stay home initially because childcare is so expensive.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, there are other people who are earning a very nice paycheck, and they really depend on both of those incomes, and it becomes a bit of a strain to have one person stay home.
Yeah. And the reality is, though, some people really shouldn't stay home because they would kill themselves or their children or some combination, right? I mean, can you give people permission not to stay home?
I would love to give people permission not to stay home. I mean, I hate to say it, but I have to admit I'm the first person who cannot spend all of my time just with my children. And, I think I'm a better mom for it.
Well, yeah, and you got to know yourself, right? I mean, this is something that's really, it's really very personal, right? It's not just money because the money part is important, but there are other pieces too. So how do you negotiate that in your family, Jack?
Well, we both work, so it's tricky. This week, my wife is out of town.
Ooh.
So in the morning, I'm getting everybody ready, taking my daughter to camp, dropping her off, then coming to the office, hurrying home to let the nanny go. And it's a lot of work.
It is, right?
Yeah.
Everybody needs, like, just someone to stay at home and not be that primary responsibility. That's the thing.
Absolutely.
So, okay, listen, this is a little bit New York-centric question, but I'm going for it. I don't care. Stacey wrote a blog post. Let's put this up, Roland. This is kind of cool, about public versus private school. And so is this a uniquely New York-centric question, Stacey, because everyone else in the real world doesn't have to face this question?
Well, the dollars are a little bit coastal, so it's New York, it's Los Angeles, it's San Francisco. But my cousin lives in Tennessee, and she deals with the question of public school or private school as well. Just the dollars aren't quite the same.
And so tell me a little bit about, like, making this decision. I mean, talk about what is this $1 million question, and how do you're a parent, you guys are both sending your kids you both have kids, so you're facing that dilemma. How do you make the decision?
Well,
Go for it.
I don't know about you, Jack, but for me, it's really painful because in my heart, I hate to say it, but I want to send my kids to private school really badly. We're not in a good school district, and it breaks my heart to think that she's not going to have the same education that I got.
It's funny because for a living, I make rational, or I at least advise people to make rational economic decisions. I can't make a rational choice. I mean, I can't make a rational explanation for why we spend the bulk of our disposable income on private school. I mean, it's tough to justify every single dollar when you think about that in percentage terms of how much of our income it is and what else it could buy and so forth. But I just have this emotional feeling that I want that education for my children. My parents, scrimped and scratched and did it for me, and I just kind of feel like I'm passing it on.
And look what they have to show for it. This brilliant, accomplished man. This is fabulous. Well, there is also a question about sort of, and I don't know, there's probably no real data to support this, but a lot of times when I used to give advice to clients of mine, I would say, you probably can't really afford to do both public high school or private high school and private college. So where do you think you're going to get the most bang for your buck? And I had one client who said something that I thought really stuck with me. He said, it's kind of more important my kid gets the attention in these formative years, learn to write, learn to the basics. And then I'm okay with him going to a public college because he'll have those skills and will be able to succeed there. So what's your opinion about that?
Well, I do think that in college you're old enough to figure out, okay, here's how I can take advantage of the education this place offers. My wife went to Penn State, and she was in the honors program, and academically her experience, I think, was probably similar to mine at a small private college. Whereas, look, when you're in second grade, you're not going to advocate for your reading skills. So I think getting that basis is really important in the young years. So I buy that. And I will give one tiny anecdotal evidence for why it might be worth it. We have a neighbor on our hallway in our building who kind of poo-pooed our decision. She sends her daughter to public school, is very proud of it. And you could tell she was thinking that we're morons for doing this. Well, my daughter was playing with her daughter, who's about 4 years older. My daughter pulled out something from her backpack, like a mint, to give to her daughter, and her homework fell. It wasn't even homework. It was just a little workbook she'd done with math. And the mother's jaw dropped, and she said, "You're doing that in first grade?" We didn't get to that till fourth grade. So there is a dramatic difference in the education.
Well, see, this is why 'cause I know that I really cannot save for college, save for my own retirement, and go on vacations, which I think that's important because it's not just my enjoyment, but I want to show my children the world. And I can't do that and pay for private school for both kids. So now I'm considering moving to the suburbs. And that's painful for me because financially that's the right thing, but for my marriage, I'm not so sure.
Wait a minute. Wait, do you want it and your husband doesn't? What's the split here? You want to stay in the city?
We both want to stay in the city.
Oh.
That's what's killing us. We know we're happy here, and we think the kids will be happier in the suburbs because everyone thinks this, but I've got smart kids. They deserve the best, and I want to make sure that they don't get left behind in a bad public school.
Although, I mean, you pay up to be in some of those really good suburbs with the good school systems. And I remember actually Elizabeth Warren, one of our favorite regulatory guruses out there, and her daughter wrote a book called The Two-Income Trap. And the trap was that as you both are working and you're striving to go into these really great school systems, you're moving to areas that cost more. It costs more to buy a house there, costs more in property taxes. So it's not the same as a public school because property taxes are partially deductible and all that fun stuff. But, it's still a big number, right, Stacey?
Oh, it's huge because, of course, we're looking at, if we want to get back to the New York-centric Westchester.
Oh, my mother's a realtor. Let me give you her card. Hold on.
So taxes there are the equivalent of private school for one child.
Exactly.
But not for two.
Right.
That's the difference because I have two kids. But I'm also thinking that maybe we'll have some other benefits. And also, I am so conservative when it comes to money, so I have to admit that. But I think that I can trade my 2-bedroom apartment in Manhattan that's already paid off and buy a modest home in the suburbs and live mortgage-free. So that's my plan.
Hold on. Time out. Your house is paid off?
I paid it off 3 months ago.
Now, Jack, are you a little bit freaked out by that? Because I am.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's hear about this. How did you do? What's this decision all about? This is not like a financial decision either, no?
Well, this is actually, ironically, everyone told us not to do this. They said it was a bad move. But for us, it made sense. First of all, we bought 10 years ago. We were still in our 20s, so the apartment really wasn't that expensive. And even though we have 2 kids now, we haven't upgraded yet. So we're living in a very small space. And we had a little extra cash that we've been able to save over the past 10 years. But our cash flow right now isn't great because I'm not earning what I used to earn 2 years ago. So we figured we could save money on a monthly basis, taking some savings that really wasn't earning much in the market because we all know what's going on in the stock market right now. So that was our decision.
Wow. I don't know. See, okay, so the planner in me doesn't want you to do this because I'm thinking, well, it doesn't really matter what I think, but I'm just thinking that like today, that if you go and you like buy a house in Westchester and you spend whatever I'm going to make it up because I don't know what you're spending, but let's say use a round number, $1 million, right? And you now are going to put down all this money, but the money is so cheap. You can get a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. You don't have to have it, 80% loan to value. You can put half the money, but you're borrowing money at 4.75% for 30 years. That seems like a pretty good deal. And you get to hold on to some of that cash in case you need to do things for those kids. And you may have a third, Stacey.
Yeah, I
never
can
know.
assure you I'm not having a third.
But anyway,
I know everybody disagrees with us, and I get all that, but I'm not a financial planner. I'm very good with the family finance side of things where, we know how to live within our means, but I'm not Warren Buffett. We're not making a ton of money. So it kind of makes sense for us. And by the way, we didn't spend all our cash. So fortunately, we still have some money left over.
I don't know what this husband does, but he sounds pretty that good a catch to me, Jack. I don't know.
I think so.
All right, now I got a question for you guys because we have some questions here from our users. If you've got a question, just shoot us an email at asktheexperts@moneywatch.com. Asktheexperts@moneywatch.com. Here's from Ernesto. Notice my accent. It's very good. He writes, I would like to open a brokerage account for my 1-year-old. Would you recommend a custodial brokerage or custodial IRA? Or is there a better way to start saving for minors? How would you like to answer this, Ms. Stacey, family finance gurus?
Well, I think this is actually a very interesting question because everybody sort of has this idea that they should start saving for their kids and how are they going to do it? But I think the bigger question is, what is the ultimate objective of the savings? Is it for college or is it just some kind of nest egg for the kids? Because that makes a big difference.
Okay, so let's assume that it is college. I have a little fun thing up here. Roland, pop this up if you wouldn't mind, please. This is savingforcollege.com because this is a really awesome site. This is where you can click on any state and see which 529 plan is offered through that state. And you can say, oh, this is so cool. Oh, this is awesome. Let's go see what's going on in Connecticut and go. And you just see. And here's the Connecticut plan. It's a Connecticut Higher Education Trust. It tells you what the ratings are. So, Stacey, I assume you like the 529 plan for college savings, yes?
I love the 529 plans. I really don't think there's anything better out there. I admit they're not perfect because nothing is.
Right.
But it has some really nice benefits. There are tax benefits. But in this particular question with the parent trying to figure out how to save for the child, what I like about it is that the child does not own the money. So the child is not going to inherit this money outright when he or she is 18 or 21. So if the money is meant for college, then it has to go towards college or there'll be some kind of penalty for the 529. But with a custodial account in UGMA or EDMA, for example, the child could just take that money and go to Europe for the summer.
Yep. We don't like that. We don't like that at all. Now, if you do want to open up a custodial account, here's a couple of sites I pulled up. Anyone can do this. Go and type in Schwab.com, Vanguard.com, Fidelity.com. Any of these places you can open up a custodial account or some sort of brokerage account. Stacey, what's your feeling about an IRA?
Well, again, we're talking about a 1-year-old, so it's not really an option. With a custodial IRA, the one caveat here is that your child needs to have earned income. So as one accountant actually mentioned to me once, this can be a very attractive vehicle for people who have a family business, and then they want to have their child work for them. And then that earned income can go into, say, a custodial Roth IRA, and then they get this nice opportunity to start saving for retirement. I thought that was brilliant.
Excellent. Now, I'm just thinking about this because, a lot of these conversations take place in your families, I imagine. And so, Jack, you're setting aside money for your college. How do you approach this idea of the separation between doing for your kids and doing for yourself? In other words, you got to save for your own retirement, right? That's like the foundation of your own family's financial structure. Do you feel like, do you do it with calculation or is by feel, or how do you make that distinction? When do you think it's sort of time to save more for Jack?
Sure. I guess that it's always a little bit of a balance between the brain and the heart, but I think you should start with some of those online calculators. Of course, we could talk for hours about why they're imperfect, but they're better than guessing. Clearly, somewhere around 15% of the family income ought to be going into a retirement account. Again, we could go up to 20. We could say why 10 might do it, but let's say that. So I think you have to start there because, as we say over and over again, there's lots of ways to borrow for college. There's no way to borrow for retirement. That said, 529 plans are incredible. They may be uniquely great in terms of the tax benefits.
Yeah.
Not only, let's review. Not only does the money grow tax-free, but you actually, in some states, including high tax New York, get a deduction for putting the money in there in the first place. The tax break is so good that our college blogger, Lynn Shaughnessy, said it ought to be removed, that it was too good. I tried to fire her, but they wouldn't let me for saying that. So, if you can possibly afford it, I think it's worth doing that just because it's such a good way to pay for college rather than, in 18 years from now, wow, how am I going to do this?
Right. Hey, Stacey, I would ask you this question also. I have a friend who is helping her adult children out, okay? And I think the numbers are sort of astounding, the number of parents who are helping their adult children. And I guess my question is, how do you kind of nicely cut them off? I mean, at some point, you can't give forever, and it's probably not good for the kid. So what advice do you have for people maybe, think of more of like a boomer, middle-aged boomerish kind of parents who want to help their kids. They don't want to enable them, but they also don't have enough money to really do this forever. So what do you say to those folks?
Well, I think getting to your point of if they can't really afford it themselves, if they were to take an honest look at their finances and realize that they can't, maybe they can let that be the excuse and then have the conversation with their adult children and saying, my own retirement account has taken a big hit over the last few years. I would really love to help you, but maybe I could give you some of my time instead of my money. If they have younger children themselves, they could help babysit the grandkids. That would be a huge help. And if the adult children don't need help with the babysitting, maybe they don't really need your money after all either.
Right.
And one thing you can always make that, because it's a very difficult thing to do, to have this conversation. Right. So make the planner the bad guy. I mean, people in this age group should be sitting down and figuring out, okay, we've got, 30, a boomer maybe has 30, 40 years they're going to have to pay for. Retirement's probably coming soon. It's a great time to sit down with a planner and say, okay, how are we going to do this? And if you're paying for private school, we see a lot of our parents, our friends are getting their tuition help from their parents. We wish we were in that situation. We're jealous of them, so I want them cut off. So the planner told us, hey, look, we've got to start putting more money aside so this stream is going to get cut off soon.
Oh, here's another idea. This is what I would love to see, actually. I would love to see the adult children be forced to show their finances to their parents.
Ooh.
Show them
Ooh.
how much do you make and have to show them the budget because maybe they're making some financial mistakes that could be corrected. Or maybe they really don't need the help. They just like the help.
Yeah. And I also do think that it's very important, and the analogy I always use is, when you're on the flight and that oxygen mask comes down, you're supposed to put it on yourself first. You've got to make sure that you've got security. And I also really do believe, as the non-parent that I am, that you need to be able to make sure that your kids know they have a safety net if something really bad does happen. But not for everything else. They've got to learn how to support themselves. I'm such a pain in the neck about this. I really am, because I really think that discipline is something that starts a lot of bad habits in the future. So as the former planner in me, I would say that having those discussions are difficult, but I think in the long run, everybody's better off as a result. Okay, I got another question for you. I might not know this, but Stacey probably does. Okay, here we have a MoneyWatch user. Is it possible to set up a flexible spending account for child care expenses if I'm a contractor? Wait, I do know that. Do you know that?
Well, here's my question, though. What sort of contractor is the person?
Okay, I know this because I know the person who wrote the question.
Oh, okay.
Because she works for the organization. So,
because some companies they treat contract workers like part-time workers, and some part-time workers can get access to a flexible spending account based upon how many hours they work a week.
I happen to know the answer to this because in this particular organization, CBS Interactive, the contractors don't have any access to health care benefits. That's what I know. And so the reality is, no, you can't set up a flexible spending account for your child care expenses because, as Stacey said, the definition of how a contractor is treated in your organization doesn't give you access to that. But I have a good one here for a follow-up. Here's a follow-up question. My wife and I had our first baby in March. What tax breaks or other financial benefits for parents and families should we be taking advantage of, Stacey? What should they be taking advantage of? I had a kid, it costs a bundle. Now I need Uncle Sam to help me out.
Well, I think the best one is if both parents are working and they have some kind of daycare, they can take advantage of the child and dependent care credit. And that is ultimately for your bottom line if you make over certain income thresholds worth up to $600.
That's a good one. That's a very good one. And what about when you obviously, you have a dependent, so you're going to claim it on your tax return. But is there anything else that you should try to claim as a deduction for kids? Is this like miscellaneous deductions? It's more than 2% of your AGI or something nonsense like that. I think that there's something out there. I don't know what it is though.
Well, I was going to jump in and say that in addition to the tax credit, which Stacey just mentioned, that FSA you're talking about, I don't know many people who use that, and it's a really big deal. I put aside $5,000 pre-tax from my paycheck, and then when I can show the government that we paid the nanny and we paid taxes on that, which makes us a rare bird, I realize.
And it also makes you eligible to run for office, Jack.
Yeah, I
can
run for office. So then I just essentially get a check for that, and it's pre-tax. So it's a big savings, and anyone who has a nanny or childcare that's above board, daycare. Yeah, of course, daycare is easy. They should really do that.
And you can use that with the child and dependent care credit, which a lot of people don't realize. They think it's an either-or situation, but it's not.
Well, this is excellent. I feel like I'm going to have a baby. Oh, wait a minute. You know what? Actually, having a baby costs more than the tax benefits that you get, so I know. There are other benefits, I assume.
We can share one with you.
Here's a fun little one that people don't think of as a parent one, which is there's the lifetime learning credit, and that often you think of as when your children go off to college. But sometimes when a parent decides to stay home with the kids, they find that their skills are getting a little bit rusty, and then they want to go back to school and take some classes. So a parent could use that as well.
This is excellent. I tell you, there's all these great benefits. Okay, I got some more. I got another question here. This is good. If you've got a question, please do send it to us. AskTheExperts@MoneyWatch.com. And here's somebody whose family set aside some money for him. Wayne asks, maybe I should direct this to you, Jack. I have a trust fund.
Oh, I don't like Wayne.
That is about to run out. And
I like
now
it
you like it better now, right? And I want to know if there's anything I can do to make it last longer. It's with Wells Fargo. I draw a certain amount each quarter. There are only about 3 quarters left.
Well, you can cut the amount that you're drawing.
Right.
That would be the simple way.
That's the simple way.
You could call mom and dad and see if they're willing to refuel. That would be another option. I guess my advice in this case would be I hope that you're not using this for what you might call operating expenses.
Right.
If that's part of your income that you need to sort of get through your monthly budgeting, then basically you've got 3 quarters to change that budget. I would look at that as a lump sum. Whatever that, forget about the 3 quarters. Consider that a lump sum of money. If you're drawing it now, frankly, I would put it into a savings account or invest it in the market and just make sure that you're living okay without that.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes people really try to mess around with the investments inside of the trust, and this could be the moment where someone says, I'm just going to take more risk to make the money double quickly. Don't fall into that trap, Wayne. Don't do that. And you're lucky you had the money while you did, right?
Yeah, and unfortunately, there's no magic bullet here. I think he might be looking for some way to really make it last, and the only way is to stop spending it, unfortunately.
Do you think that Stacey feels a little bit stupid for having prepared so much? Like she's got 14 pages of notes there, and we just do this off the cuff. Like she is so much better prepared than us.
But she looks a lot smarter than we do.
She sure does, and she is. Yeah. She may be, in fact.
There
it is. Yeah. That. Okay, so how are you guys teaching your kids about money? What are some of your tips for our parents out there who are trying to talk to their kids? How old are your kids, Jack?
6 and 3.
And Stacey has our 8-month-old and
And a 4-year-old.
so
So
what?
similar.
So Stacey, what about when do people start talking to their kids about money?
I started at around age 3. Obviously, we weren't going through budgets at that point, but I started introducing certain key phrases that I use all the time now.
Get to work.
interest.
Get to work. Get to work.
Well, it is. I do. We actually say, because I noticed at my daughter's preschool that the kids started playing ATM machine and they would just practice taking money out because they were watching us do this.
Wow.
Right. And we
love
figured
that.
this is not a candy store. So my husband and I started saying, how do we get money? We work. It doesn't come, you know.
Doesn't
there's
come out of a
reason.
machine. That's
So
awesome.
We always talk about where does money come from? Work. And then I also always explain that there are things that we need versus things that we want.
Oh, that's good.
And I've also started introducing, you know, if someone's whining at the store wanting something, I always say we make smart choices with our money.
Oh.
And I'm not sure if that one sinks in yet, but I'm going to keep repeating it, and I'm hoping in a few years it makes a lot of sense.
Well, what if the child then says, yes, it would be very smart if you bought chocolate Cheerios? That would be very smart for us.
Then I would probably start going into the dentist, you know, some issues about cavities.
So, Jack, what about you? How do you talk about money with your kids?
Well, we use the same one about explaining where money comes from, and that does double duty because, of course, children don't understand why 5 mornings a week you leave and don't come back for a long time. So we try to explain the connection there, so it's not abandoning them; it is paying for the house. We've just sort of started with the allowance with the 6-year-old, and frankly, mom and dad have fallen down on that job. But we're going to get back into it. I think that still at that age, it's tough for them to conceive of the value of money. They want something when they want it. But I think by giving them an allowance, we're going to help train them that, you know, you have a certain amount of money. We're going to do the 3-bucket thing where you save a little, you spend a little, you give a little to charity. And they're starting to come around. Another thing we've talked about is, and this is less important now than it was 8 months ago, what we call in our house the money troubles. They heard a lot of stories, a lot of stuff on the news about financial problems. Dad lost his job when his magazine closed. Luckily, he's gainfully employed now. But we talked about, we said, a lot of people are going through a tough time. A lot of people are having a much tougher time than we are, and we're going to solve the problem, and we have to be careful in the meantime. And I think just by being straightforward with them and not getting too excited, but also they can tell when you're being honest or when you're sweeping something under the rug, that it just helped comfort them.
And Stacey, having these conversations early on, it does kind of pave the way for future conversations. Like, hey, you know what? Mom and Dad can't actually afford private university, and to have that conversation earlier so that the kid knows what the expectations are, and to be kind of free flowing. Now, I will not suggest that you do it the way my family did it, because my father was a Wall Street trader. And so, you know, literally he would come home and my mother would say, how did we do today?
Ooh.
And so it was a bottom line kind of family. What's your opinion on telling your kids about how much money you make? And is that just never done? What do you think about that?
I don't feel comfortable with that. I don't think that I would ever tell them, but I might tell them that we're not starving. We do okay. We're really lucky.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we need to be aware that other people aren't as fortunate.
Well, how about as they get older? I mean, if you're giving like career advice, I heard a friend of mine say to her kid recently, my first job out of school, I made $14,000. And let me tell you what that is in today's dollars. And you have to understand that, people start off, you see me at this point in my career, but here I am. And it was interesting to kind of peek in on that conversation.
Well, actually, what I would love to do is I would love to get financial advice and career advice from both my parents and my husband's parents for our children as well, because they all have a different take and they've all worked things out.
Mm-hmm.
So I have my mother-in-law who is a teacher for so many years, which is not considered a well-paying job, but she has this fantastic pension now and she's taken care of. And maybe that won't happen in the future, but that made her very happy.
Right.
Whereas my father worked on Wall Street, and he always talked about how he never had any job security, and it was very important to save, save, save. So I think that has a very important lesson as well. And I think my husband and I have taken a little bit from that, and I just think lots of opinions are helpful.
Yeah, yeah. And Jack, do you feel like your parents or your in-laws, did they inform you? Did your parents talk to you, or do you do it differently than they did it with you? Or was it quiet in your house and then maybe you want to be a little bit more open in your own house?
Well, as you can tell, I'm kind of an Upper East Side wasp, so we never talk about these things
Or anything else.
Yeah, exactly.
Very
Yeah,
perfect.
emotion. What's that? No, my father actually told me, and I don't remember exactly how old I was. I'm guessing somewhere around college, a little before, a little after, what he made, and I would have been too young to understand it at an earlier age. I mean, you don't understand that, but I'm glad he did because that helped me understand things. It sort of gave me a benchmark, and then when I hit it. I didn't adjust for inflation, so
Yeah, you're
now I
like,
realize,
I did it way before he did.
yeah,
That's
no,
so
no, that's-
awesome.
oh no, I didn't actually.
You know,
But
boys, always comparing.
yeah, but I do think it's useful because it helps you. It just helps you kind of put the world in perspective. So I think they're way too young now because they can't understand that
Right,
number.
absolutely.
But later on, it's good.
Well, we're going to close up shop today. So, Roland, let's put this up again, if you wouldn't mind, up on the our screen because we must plug Stacey's book. This is the financial guidebook for new parents. Stacey Bradford, who is a blogger here at MoneyWatch. You can check out her blog. It's so awesome, by the way. Family Finance.
thank
It's
you.
great. It's very readable, and it's real issues that you're dealing with, that people are dealing with. If you've got questions for us in the next few weeks, just shoot us an email, asktheexperts@moneywatch.com. And we want to thank you so much for joining us. I'm Jill Schlesinger.
I'm Jack Otter.
And of course, Stacey Bradford, the brilliant gurus about anything family finance. And Roland, thank you for running the board. Megan, thank you for producing. And Rich, thanks for standing around looking cute. All right.